All right, welcome everybody to the October 25th, 2023 City of Mesa Planning and Zoning Board public hearing. We'll begin with a roll call of the board members present. Chair Ayers, myself, I'm here. Vice Chair Pitcher.
Here.
Board Member Crockett.
Here.
Board Member Peterson.
Here.
Board Member Montez.
Here.
Board Member Blakeman is absent today, and Board Member Carpenter.
Here.
All right, welcome all. As part of the agenda, we have a consent agenda, and it will be read into the record and acted on in one motion. These items will not be discussed individually. I'm going to have Board Member Peterson read this, but just one check on any cards that change anything on the consent agenda. These are all we have.
And there's one right behind you.
Oh, there's another one.
4A and 4C, let's check for 4C.
All right, and this is 4C. All right.
4A, 4B, and 4C, come on.
Yep, we're still good. So consent is still good.
Okay.
Board Member Peterson.
So for public reference, items 4A, 4B, and 4C will not be on the consent motion. They will be handled individually, and each case will be separate. Items on the consent agenda for the Wednesday, October 25th, Mesa Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Item 2A, minutes from the October 11th, 2023 study session and regular meeting. Item 3A, ZON 22-01082, Queen of Heaven Cemetery Office Edition, Garage and Mausoleum. District 4 within the 1,400 to 1,600 blocks of East Baseline Road and the 1,600 to 2,000 blocks of South Harris Drive, located east of Stapley Drive and south of Baseline Road.
North of.
Okay, thank you. Located east of Stapley Drive and north of Baseline Road. Site plan review and special use permit. This request will allow for a cemetery and associated accessory uses in an agricultural district. Recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 3B, ZON 22-01233, Outlaw Trucking, District 2, within the 5300 block of East Main Street, located south of Main Street and east of Higley Road, major site plan modification. This request will allow for a commercial development, and the recommendation is to be continued to the November 15th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Item 3C, ZON 23-00056, Hampton Commercial and Brewster's Drive-Thru. District 5 within the 7500 block of East Hampton Avenue, located west of Sossaman Road and south of Southern Avenue. Major site plan modification and special use permit. This request will allow for a limited service restaurant with a drive-through facility and a multi-tenant commercial building. The recommendation is approval with conditions, along with a modification to condition 3 to delete the reference to cross-parking agreement. Is that correct? Okay. Item 3D, ZON 23-00210, East Market Major Land Use Budget Transfer. District 6, within the 9,200 to 9,400 blocks of East Ray Road, within the 9,200 to 9,300 blocks of Point 22 Boulevard, within 9,300 to 10,000 blocks of East Point 22 Boulevard, within the 4,200 to 4,700 blocks of South Eastmark Parkway, within the 9,200 to 9,800 blocks of East Warner Road, and within the 4,400 to 5,200 blocks of South Ellsworth Road, located north of Ray Road and east of Ellsworth Road. Major budget transfer. This request will allow for the transfer of dwelling units approved for Development Unit 1 to Development Unit 3/4 North. Recommendation is to be continued to the November 15th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Item 4D, ZON 23-00677, Fusion Wellness Office Building, District 5, within the 10,100 to 10,200 blocks of East Hampton Avenue, located east of Crisman Road and south of Southern Avenue. Major site plan modification and amending conditions of approval for case number ZON 07-007. This request will allow for a medical office. Recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 5A, ZON 23-00673, Cannon Beach, condominium preliminary plat. District 6, within the 4,400 to 4,500 blocks of South Power Road, located south of Warner Road on the east side of Power Road. Review of a preliminary plat. Recommendation is approval with conditions.
All right, thank you, Board Member Peterson. I'll request a motion from the board to approve the consent agenda at this time.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as it's been read.
And second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please vote. Or not. Okay, there it goes. It's not coming up, but I'm guessing we are, oh, there it is. I see it over there. Okay. With everyone here voting yes, it passes unanimously without board member, who's not here today? Board member Blakeman's not here. So thank you, everybody. All right. So now we will move on to the cases that we have at this time. Rachel, I turn it over to you. Or do I do over Mary? Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. This is gonna be confusing.
Sorry, Chair, I was getting a tutorial on this voting machine here
Oh, you're
when you're
good.
talking. Okay, so we have
Item 4A.
Evan to make a presentation on item 4A, which is case ZON 23-00545.
This is case ZON 23-00545. It is a request for a major site plan modification and also a special use permit to allow for the development of a limited service restaurant with a drive-through in the neighborhood commercial zoning district. Subject property is crosshatched on your map. It is the northwest corner of University and Val Vista Drive. There are two general plan designations on the property. On the west side of the site, the general plan designation is neighborhood. The purpose of the neighborhood character area is to provide safe places for people to live and enjoy their surrounding community. It also allows for commercial uses on arterial frontages and arterial intersections. The east side of the site is a neighborhood village center. The purpose of the neighborhood village center is to provide shopping areas for neighborhoods generally within about 2 miles of the site. As I mentioned, the zoning on the property is neighborhood commercial. The site is currently vacant. The photo on the left is from University Drive. The photo on the right is looking west from Val Vista. Here you can see the proposed site plan. I would like to note that there is a separate request for a development incentive permit. That goes to the Board of Adjustment. The purpose of the development incentive permit is to allow for deviations from specific development standards for smaller bypass parcels such as this. On the site plan, you can see the Starbucks is approximately 2,400 square feet. It has a drive-through, which is on the south side of the building, in between the building and University Drive. There's an approximate 400 square foot outdoor dining area on the west side of the site. There are two access points to the site, one from Val Vista Drive, one from University Drive. Here you can see the landscape plan proposed. The trees primarily are red push pistache and mulga trees. Both the landscape plan and the elevations that you see here went to the design review board. Last Tuesday, the board was very complimentary of the design. They actually did not receive any comments back from the design review board. When staff analyzes a request for a special use permit, we use the 4 criteria found in section 1170-5 of the zoning ordinance. The first is that approval of the proposed project will advance the goals and objectives of and is consistent with the policies of the general plan and other city policy documents. As I mentioned, there are 2 general plan designations on the site in the neighborhood commercial and the neighborhood subtype. The neighborhood character area, it does allow for commercial on arterial frontages. The neighborhood village center encourages shopping areas for residents within about 2 miles of the site. Staff does find it is consistent with criteria number 1. Criteria 2, the location, size, design, and operating characteristics of the project are consistent with the purpose of the district where it's located and conform with the general plan. As I mentioned previously, limited service restaurants with drive-throughs are a permitted use in the neighborhood commercial zoning district with the approval of a special use permit. Criteria 3, the proposed project will not be injurious or detrimental to the adjacent or surrounding properties in the area, the greater neighborhood, or the general welfare of the city. As I mentioned previously on the site, it is a small site, but the applicant took steps to try to mitigate any potential impacts from the residents to the north. As I mentioned, the drive-through is on the south side of the site, buffered by the building. The speaker box is on the university side and actually oriented towards university, so sound from the speaker box will project towards the street instead of to the north. The last criteria is that adequate public services, public facilities, and public infrastructure are available to the project. This location has all of the necessary utilities needed. The applicant did complete a citizen participation plan. They notified neighbors within 1,000 feet of the site, as well as HOAs and registered neighborhoods. They held a neighborhood meeting in May of this year. There were 7 attendees, and they got a few questions related primarily to the hours of operation, access to the site, the property line wall along the north property, and the solid waste enclosure. The applicant has modified their plans to the extent that they can. First, the hours of operation. Starbucks opens very early in the morning. I think it's around 4. They close at approximately 8:30 at night. Access to the site, as I mentioned, is from both University and Val Vista. The Val Vista Drive access is meeting the requirement for an access drive is in proximity to an arterial intersection. Moving it any farther south would render it useless, so that we don't have one access to the site. The property line wall along the north property line is in a state of disrepair, and it has been that way for a little while. The applicant is here and can speak a little bit more about any agreements that they have reached with the property owners regarding that wall. The solid waste enclosure is located on the north side of the site. It is located there primarily for functional reasons. Other locations on the site would not work and still meet the solid waste requirements for backing distance and turning radius. The applicant has agreed that the solid waste will be serviced 3 times a week during normal business operating hours. With that, staff does find that this complies with the 2040 Mesa General Plan, as well as the criteria in Chapter 69 for site plan review, and the criteria in Section 1175 for a special use permit. Staff is recommending approval with conditions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
All right, thank you, Evan. Is there any questions for the applicant or for Evan from the board? No, nothing? Okay. I think we're good there. I do know we have a couple of comments here from the public. So I have one blue card that wishes to speak at this time. Is that correct?
Chairs, that is correct. We have also received a couple of online requests to speak via Zoom.
Okay, cool. So let's start with the one we have here, and then we'll go to the Zoom. Does that sound good? All right. So let's see. Can I have Louis Kresge up? And if you could state your name and address for us for the record.
Louis Kresge, 3519 East Covina Street. So in general, I am in favor of this proposal, but unfortunately, I cannot tell from the schematic whether or not the restaurant is interior or only that outdoor patio. I would not be in favor of this if it was only an outdoor patio. It's Arizona. We need to be inside. I'm generally in favor of the proposal. That particular property has been vacant for many, many, many years, and it's an eyesore. This facility would allow the residents to the north to walk to the facility, which would be very convenient. There's a manufactured housing community across Val Vista. They could, some cases, walk or drive their golf carts over. It's a very convenient facility, would add to the whole area as far as an option for people to socialize, get out of the house and all that. But again, my one concern is that there's an interior restaurant space, not just an outdoor space. I wouldn't, frankly, not be in favor of the proposal at all if it was just drive-through or outdoor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'll allow the applicant to come up and to respond to you, but there's interior space. I can say that, right? I'm safe. So we'll move over to the 2 that we have on Zoom.
Chair, I've been informed that Maria is the only one that's available online to speak right now. So Maria, if you can hear us, your time is yours.
Do you hear us, Maria? Technology. Maria, are you there? I heard something.
Hello?
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 Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. This
Okay,
is
thank
Maria
you. Could you
Grozic.
state your name and address for us, Maria, and then you could speak on the issue. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Maria Grozic, address 3557 East Caballero Street and 3549 East Caballero Street. And we have facility, it's absolute adult care home with 10 residents who is not capable to walk. They are in the wheelchairs and walkers. It's on 3557. It's elderly residents in. And we don't want to have less than 25 feet from our wall, and we don't agree with the drive-through because that is going to make a lot of noise for our residents, and they don't have any peace.
Okay.
And the second house is the house where we live nearby. This Starbucks is going to be in the back of our homes.
Okay, thank you.
And I sent some information about the damage what this Johnson did on our wall, and he's not cooperating with us to come to remove these problems what is in here. Then we don't agree to have a drive-through and not less than 25 feet from our wall.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Anything else?
No, only this because of this business is for 30 years in here or more than 30 years, and I think we have to get that in the consideration because it's elderly people and they have to have some rest and they don't feel good, and if we have all the time cars going around and lights, and plus on this corner we have a lot of accidents. Today there was 2 car accidents on the corner. And Starbucks, we have across the street in Albertsons store. Who wants to go to Starbucks, they can go to the store and buy the coffee. I don't think so. We need that much Starbucks on this corner too.
All right, thank you, Maria. We appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank you so much for letting me to comment on this.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
All right, do we have any
Bye.
other?
Yeah, so Chair, Board members, looks like some of the items that she was referencing about damage to the walls and things, we were provided with pictures right before the meeting here, so I can pass these to the board. And it looks like, believe they're opening a code compliance case in regards to this.
Oh, okay. We'll take a look at that. Okay, and then the other one did not make it on the call, right? Okay. Well, with that, then we'll allow the applicant to come up to respond, Evan, to some of these comments.
Good evening. My name is John Gillespie. I'm an attorney with the law office of Pugh and Lake here in Mesa 174 South Val Vista. I'll try to be brief. I do want to go through the slides to kind of describe and answer a few of the questions that were raised for the Starbucks proposed here at the northwest corner of University and Val Vista. It is a small site here right at the arterial intersection, less than an acre. You'll see here the site was zoned in 2016 for commercial uses, neighborhood commercial. The project here, you can see on our site plan, wanted to point out a few of the steps that were taken in response to interaction with neighbors throughout this process. The owner of the property Dave Johnson has owned the property for multiple years and has a relationship with the neighbors and has gone forth on several proposals for development at this site. And we think we've done a good job of addressing some of the concerns that have been raised here. So the building setback is a big one, required 25 feet in the neighborhood commercial, and we moved this building as close to University as possible to create a nice buffer to the residential, 82 feet. With the landscape setback, required in the neighborhood commercial is actually 20 feet, and we're requesting a 10-foot landscape setback at its smallest point. As a part of that landscaping effort, we're installing 11 new trees in that landscape buffer. And then as well, we're agreeing to a new perimeter wall to be installed. So that wall is in really bad condition right now. Starbucks doesn't want it. We don't want it. And the city doesn't want it, apparently, with the code compliance case. So we're going to work hand in hand with the neighbors on coordinating the construction of a new wall that is safe and pretty and works well with the site. That shows there the stretch of the 3 homes that are adjacent to the property that new wall will be installed on. Another important effort was taken with the city to move that drive-through lane as far away from the residences as possible. And so the drive-through was put south of the building up against the arterial street in order to mitigate impacts to the neighbors. An important site design consideration I'd like to draw attention to is that our drive-through queue exceeds the City of Mesa standards, required to have 140 feet from the pickup window to the start of that queue, and we have 219 feet. And as well, that start of that queue is interior to the site, which was designed with in mind. We don't want cars overflowing into University and into Val Vista. So the site design team, I thought they did a really nice job designing this site to balance the considerations of the city as well as the neighbors. Another consideration with that order board being placed 115 feet from the residential property line and oriented towards University. We were able to meet the parking requirements for the site. We have a limited number of deviations that we're going to go to the Board of Adjustment for, the landscape setback on the north, and as well a setback for exiting cars need to have 50 feet, and we're asking for a minor deviation to that. Here's some renderings of the building. Once again, if you know the history of this site, it used to be the old Bird Lady house, as we affectionately refer to it, and so it was a mid-century modern building and had some unique design characteristics that Starbucks has said, you know what, let's try to incorporate that Mesa history into our design. So you'll see the CMU use in a curved corner architecture on these buildings. I thought they did a really nice job. With that, I'm happy to answer any other questions. Lewis did raise a question about the building itself, so I'll reiterate. It's a 2,400 square foot Starbucks, has at least 1,200 interior square feet for seating and meeting inside of the building. So it does have an outside patio as well, covered patio, but it does have nice room on the inside for gathering. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. I have one quick, and just kind of after looking at the photos and seeing what's going on with that north wall. So I looked again at the site plan because I couldn't remember what the species, but you're calling out for acacia within that 10-foot landscape strip at the back, which at a mature size, those are a 20 by 20. So one of the things I might recommend working through, I don't know if we want to put this in here as a condition or anything, but the maintenance agreement on that, if it is a 20 by 20 tree and you only got a 10 by 10, 10-foot setback and you're in the middle, that means you've got potentially 15 feet on that neighbor's side. Just to ease some things there to make it a little bit easier from a maintenance agreement.
Absolutely, Chair. That's a good point. We did want to put a nice sized tree in there in order to create a good buffer, but I agree that the condition of maintaining that is vital to the project to make sure that we're working as good neighbors.
Might be something just to kind of ease some of those concerns with what we're seeing with the issues with the wall on the north side. So that's just something after looking at those pictures, I don't know if we want to necessarily say that's a condition, but. it could be part of a good neighbor policy, potentially.
We will need to enter into a shared wall maintenance agreement with that neighbor when that wall goes in. While we are footing the cost of it, there will be an agreement in place.
Would that be something that you think?
And that should be folded into the agreement to maintain the wall as surrounding landscape considerations.
I would personally think, I'm not sure if the rest of the board agrees with that. Any other questions or, yeah, there you go.
Thanks for your presentation. I've just got one question that came up on the phone call about noise. And maybe you can address how, Starbucks starts early and they go kind of late. And so I'm just wondering what you've done, to attenuate the noise.
Yes, thank you. So there's a couple of measures that I think are in place there, as I'd mentioned, that do mitigate the noise issues. The drive-through lane itself being thrown to the south as much as possible, as close to the already existing arterial streets that these homes are nearby. As well, the trees and the wall that provides a certain degree of buffer that will slightly improve the conditions. We will need to comply with the City of Mesa's noise ordinance, which says that essentially we can't go above the ambient noise and have that noise flood onto neighboring properties. So that will be enforced by the City of Mesa. And in terms of the hours of operation, I don't drink coffee, but 4 a.m. is really early to get your coffee. But 4:30, I think, to 7 is the projected hours of operation for this site. I know other sites do have different hours of operation. And in terms of being a good neighbor, I think there's been a long-term relationship. The current owner is going to continue to own the site and is readily available to mitigate if there happens to be any noise complaints in the future.
I think if nobody else has anything, I might actually, so I don't have any language specific to writing a proposed kind of amendment or condition of approval here, so can I just kind of say it and the language can be worked out? Does that make sense?
Sure. Did you still want to add the condition, or were
I
you
think so.
okay having it as part of their future agreement of, you want to add one?
I do.
Okay, yeah,
But, I
then
mean,
if
I'll leave it
that's
up to
the
the board. I
board's
mean-
discretion, then that's fine.
And Chair Ayers, just a question for legal counsel. Do we need to move the item first before we propose an amendment and vote on an amendment to the
Well, no,
stipulation?
I'm just adding a condition of approval.
But do we need to?
So I would advise that you would decide what that condition looks like first, and then
before you
someone
make a
can make a motion
Yeah.
with that condition added.
So I throw that at if anybody else agrees with me, if not, the board to add that as a condition.
I'm happy to support that. And you're suggesting, Chair Ayers, that the size of the canopy be they select a tree that's smaller in size?
No, I think
or-
the tree's fine. I think that as John was talking about, and then give me a thumbs up here, it was just about a landscape maintenance agreement.
Okay, and that would involve them ensuring that the tree doesn't overhang the neighbor's property by what? I mean, could there be some overhang, or what does that look like,
Yeah,
the
that's
maintenance
For
agreement?
you could propose that they just enter a landscape maintenance agreement with those property owners to address the landscaping along whatever property line that is. Yeah.
I think that would be perfect.
And any potential maintenance issue.
Okay. Well, then I'll make a motion if you're ready.
Yeah.
All right, so agenda item 4A, case ZON 23-00545, Starbucks at University in Val Vista, District 1, within the 400 to 500 blocks of North Val Vista Drive, west side, and within the 3500 block of East University Drive, located west of Val Vista Drive and north of University Drive. Major site plan modification and amending conditions of approval for case number Z16-033 and special use permit. This request will allow for a restaurant with a drive-through. The staff recommendation is approval with conditions, and I would propose an additional condition be added that would require the owner to enter into a landscape maintenance agreement with the property owners to the north of the project.
There you go. Second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, please vote. There we go. I have to look over here now. Okay. All that passes unanimously. Appreciate everybody. All right, we're on to 4B.
Chair, that is correct. So next item off of consent is 4B, which is case ZON 23-00160, and Sean will be making that presentation.
Thank you, Chair, board members. Again, this is case ZON 23-00160. This is a request for site plan review and rezone from RS43 to RM3 PAD for a project known as Meridian Gardens. This is a multiple residence development. So the site is located at the northwest corner of Meridian and Southern Avenue, the eastern boundary of the city of Mesa. It's north of the US 60 Superstition Freeway, and to the north and west is existing single residence. To the south is state land, and then to the east across Meridian is the city of Apache Junction. The general plan character area designation on the site is neighborhood. There is a suburban subtype. So within the neighborhood character area, the intent is really to provide safe places for people to live, and it does mention of providing a variety of housing types, including multiple residents. Within the suburban subtype, RM3 is listed as a secondary zoning district, and secondary zoning districts are supported when the primary zoning has been established. And when we look at the zoning map for the overall neighborhood, we can see most of it's taken up by RS6, single residence. That's a primary zoning within the suburban subtype. Therefore, the rezone request from RS43, which you can see here, to RM3, multiple residence, is supported. So again, the existing zoning is RS43. The proposed zoning is RM3 PAD, and multiple residence is allowed by right in the RM3 district. This is a photo looking west from Meridian. You can see some vegetation in the background of the photo. That is the existing open drainage channel. And then this is north from Southern Avenue. You can see the neighboring single residence subdivision. The applicant's proposing 72 units. These are 3-story buildings. There's 3 of them proposed. You can see them in green on the site plan. Primary access to the site is from Meridian, and there is a gate with keypad for turnaround. An exit-only gate is in the southwest corner of the site, and that provides access, exit-only access to Southern Avenue. I'll also note there's an existing drainage channel that runs along the west and north boundary lines, as well as a drainage easement, and that's owned and maintained by the city of Mesa. 152 parking spaces are required per code, 2.1 per unit. 152 are proposed, as well as 72 covered parking spaces, which complies with Mesa zoning ordinance chapter 32. Here's a landscape plan. I'll just note some of the landscaping proposed, especially around the drainage channel. So because this is a City of Mesa drainage channel, we have some requirements for planting. And I'll get into the PAD, the planned area development, and those deviations. But DG is being proposed on the west side of the drainage channel. And then there's abundance of landscaping along the perimeter, especially within the right-of-way, which you can't see on this rendering. The landscaping will be discussed, though, at Design Review Board at next month's work session. So for the planned area development overlay, there's some requirements the applicant's proposing some deviations to, including building setbacks. So the requirement is 20 feet from Meridian and Southern, and the proposed building setback from Meridian is 8 feet, and a 0-foot setback from Southern Avenue. The required landscape yard width is 20 feet also along Meridian and Southern Avenue, and the proposed landscape yard width is 0 feet. The minimum building separation for 3-story buildings is 35 feet, and the minimum separation proposed for this project is 15 feet. There's also requirements for parking setbacks. That's 50 feet measured from the property line. The proposed parking setback is 0 feet from Southern Avenue, which is the from the south property line along Southern Avenue. Foundation base width is 10 feet for exterior walls adjacent to parking, and the proposed setback is 5 feet. And then lastly, for landscaping, we have some tree and shrub requirements along the street frontage, as well as the perimeter landscape yards, and no trees are proposed within the street frontage due to the placement of the building so close to the PUFE and the property line. And then, as I'll get into, it's not possible on the west and north sides of the site because of that existing drainage easement. So property owners were notified within 1,000 feet and HOAs and registered neighborhoods within a mile. A virtual meeting was held on April 20th of this year. Comments were raised about density, and roadway improvements to Meridian Southern, headlight spillage from surface parking, and then noise from amenity areas. The applicant did work with staff and the neighbors to address most of those concerns. To start with the comments about roadway improvements, those will be handled under Maricopa County because it is county right-of-way. We will need to see those approved permits before we issue our city permits, city building permits. For the headlight spillage concern, the applicant is providing a block wall between the drainage channel and the parking stalls to prevent any light spillage reaching those neighboring properties. And then lastly, for the noise concern, I'll go back to the site plan. I don't know if you can see it. This is the pool area. Originally, it was in the southwest corner of the site. After the neighborhood meeting, they moved it more centrally located. It's about 200 feet from the north property line, and then it's shielded to the west by one of the proposed buildings. So overall, we find the request complies with the general plan, meets the review criteria and approval criteria for a PAD overlay in Chapter 22, and meets this review criteria for site plan in Chapter 69, and our recommendation is approval with conditions. I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have the applicant here to provide some clarification if needed.
All right, thanks, Sean. Questions from the board? I'm not seeing any. Okay. Nothing, we're good, okay. I do have one request to speak on this one, correct? So we'll bring them up. Sean, how's that sound? So
Chair Ayers, the request to speak was submitted online and they are on Zoom as well. Greg Nielsen, you'll see a request to unmute. Go ahead and unmute yourself and then you can go ahead and speak.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. If you could state your
Yeah,
name
the
and address,
concerns.
Greg, that'd be great.
Yeah, my name's Greg Nielsen. My address is 1131 South Bryce. That's right behind the proposed building. And my concern was the traffic. I think I just heard on the TV that it was Maricopa County's responsibility, Meridian and Southern, that whole intersection.
Yes, he did, yes.
Okay, that was one of my concerns. It's not big enough to handle, but if it's county, I guess it's not your responsibility. And then the spillage of the lights that he was talking about, that little block wall, I don't know how tall it's going to be, but I get lights from Meridian and Southern already, and I think the lights from the parking are going to shine right into the back of these houses here. And then one last item was the privacy. I mean, there are 3 stories. What's going to, I don't want anybody looking in my backyard here. I mean, that means I'm going to have to cover my windows. I've got sunshades on now, sunscreens. And I just think at nighttime you can see in, but daytime you can't. So that's going to be an issue. People peering in my windows. I don't know if that'll happen, but, they are apartments. And after 5 years down the road, when the housing market falls out, they're going to drop their prices. And then who knows who's going to be in there. This is a pretty bad area for drugs and homeless. And those were my concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nielsen. We appreciate your comments. And that is all we have for comment at this time. Okay, we'll bring the applicant back up to respond to. All right, perfect.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Bonham with BFH Group, acting as the applicant for this particular project, located at 222 North Stapley Drive here in Mesa. So yes, some of these concerns were voiced, and we discussed them in our meeting with the neighbors. One is with traffic. Of course, we've got to work through work through with everything with Maricopa County. So those will hopefully be addressed and taken care of, and expansion will be provided as needed. The question as far as noise, we did shift some things around. He also brought up another additional comment that I don't believe was brought up before, which was privacy. We anticipated that. We always anticipate that when we've got a 3-story building next to residential. And so we've done everything we possibly can to push that as far away from those residences. And I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the distance is roughly around 200 feet. So
You have 191 on the north and 161 on the west.
perfect.
So there you go.
Okay. So there is a significant separation. And so we did everything we possibly could to eliminate that. So I believe privacy will be provided as requested. And then, of course, the screening, we're definitely willing to provide the screening to allow, to block any kind of spillage as far as the lights. So I believe we're doing everything we possibly can to address those comments and concerns, and we'll continue to work with the city and staff to ensure that we comply with everything. So,
Any other questions from the board? Board member?
I've just got one question, and this may be the other question about, it looks like, how tall is that wall going to be? How tall is the wall
I'm sorry?
between, on the other side of the drainage canal?
the existing wall? I believe it's a 6-foot CMU wall.
Okay.
Yep.
And it looks like all those trees got taken out.
Okay.
Is there any buffer between the wall and the parking that you've got there, so we can have some landscaping, some trees in there to add some screenage?
Well, there's 2 challenges. There has to be access for maintenance. So that's challenge number 1, to provide any kind of plants or even trees for that matter. The other is irrigation and getting water over there. Obviously, the channel blocks that. And so there's both of those, mostly the maintenance. So yeah, unfortunately, normally we do something like that, and that's a requirement along the perimeter, but in this case, we won't be able to.
Any other questions? Jesse?
I have a question just to clarify. If I built a 2-story home there, a bunch of 2-story homes, what's a 2-story home? Like, how high? Permitted?
30 feet.
Okay,
Yeah, 30 feet.
okay.
How tall will these buildings end up being? I'm sorry, I should have looked.
We're limited to, and off the top of my head, I think it's 36 feet, but we're limited to 40.
With how
Under the
close
zone.
they are to Southern and how pushed they are to the right-of-way, are you concerned at all with the height and potential scaffolding while building with the proximity to the high-voltage lines that run there?
No, I'm sure the construction crew will be definitely aware. We've done this before. I know that those are lines that I think exceed the 12 kV, so they may not be undergrounded. However, yeah, that obviously is a concern during construction. We'll have to make provisions for that.
And then the right-of-way right there, I noticed there's 10 additional feet of right-of-way being taken. There seems to be not a retaining wall, but currently there's those wood posts along that. That's all gonna be taken out, cleaned
Yes.
up, and then sidewalk and
Yeah.
landscape? Okay.
Yeah, well, that obviously will have to go through McDOT, but yeah, that's the intention.
Okay, thank you.
So, and then along those lines, I'll be honest, one of the things that is the most concerning to me about this one is there are so many questions right now with Southern and Meridian. So I'll be honest, so maybe this is more for a staff kind of question, but do we know that is there gonna be any other changes to this once we figure out what's going on with the county to the site plan?
No, I don't believe so. We've added the additional right-of-way per the requirement for City of Mesa. Typically, Maricopa County doesn't require additional right-of-way. We've made a preliminary contact with them asking if they would require additional right-of-way, and they deferred to City of Mesa at this time.
Okay.
We can't get any more clarification from them on that.
So if the 10 feet is given to Mesa, would you deal with Mesa? If the additional 10 feet of right-of-way? I guess that's just a question.
That is above my pay grade, so.
Thank you, Chair, Board Member Carpenter. So generally what we do if we ask for additional right-of-way for a road that's in the county, we do that in the event that Mesa annexes the road at some point in the future. Then we have the full width of right-of-way needed for whatever the street section happens to be. So we'll have that 10 feet if at some point Mesa annexes the road. It's there if we need it.
Okay, so Evan, and that's already within the right-of-way that you're showing on the plans at this time, right? Yeah. Because when I look at this, so for example, you got your existing right-of-way going, you're showing a dimension to the FOC line. So then you've got 24 feet from the wait, no, it's actually less than that. I don't know what that dimension is. What I'm looking at the site plan is the 24-foot setback is to the curb line, to face of curb, right?
So you have that right was 55.
Right, and so then you have an additional 10 feet right there.
And then there's 65, and then you have your 8-foot PUFE.
Right. So what are true setback to property line?
That's from face of curb. So
That's just super
From
tight.
property line is 8 feet, because
Yeah.
it's from the right of way.
So that's the 8-foot line,
from the
okay.
right of way to
And it's just, it's tight for, it seems like 3 stories, 8-foot setback is a concern. So you see, yeah, you see where you got, so you're showing 24 feet from the building down to curb, just to the left of where you're pointing, right?
Might be easier to see it. Might be easier to see it on that. And you can pull it up there too.
It's just
You
super
can
tight,
zoom in that way.
yeah.
That's less than 24 feet.
That's what-
city right.
Yeah, that's the face of curb.
So Chair, Board members, if I'm looking at this correctly, it looks like there's 18 feet from the building to the current extent of the right-of-way, and we request that they show the future right-of-way so that we can ensure that what's built is
Right,
not within if we need to acquire that additional right-of-way. So
but let's say that does happen, Rachel, that means that we're losing that 10 feet.
that's correct. So that sidewalk would be right up against the future right-of-way.
Yeah, it's right there. And then that future right-of-way is, anyway, that's the concern I have, is that we have a 3-story building that close potentially to the sidewalk and to the curb, the eventual curb. That's my concerns. Anyway, anybody else, anything else for the applicant right now, guys? We can discuss. Okay, I think we're good. I'll close the public hearing and let the board discuss, or anybody would like to make a motion on this? I think you know my concerns. Anybody?
Well, maybe could we get a reaction from staff on your concern on this?
Yeah, I mean, Evan, is there any concern with that, if that was to happen where we lose the 10-foot right-of-way? Or it grows, let's say?
Thank you, Chair, board members. So I would say in general, all of our quality design guidelines and the zoning ordinance is really set up to get the buildings as close as possible to the street. I understand your concern about there being essentially, if the city annexes that and we utilize that right away, that will be right on the street. I can't speak for the transportation department, but what I will say is they generally don't annex streets until both sides have been improved. So I think in the event that Southern was annexed, it would be a ways out from here. It might be unlikely that it ever happens. But I guess I would say that it's closer to the right-of-way, which is generally what staff encourages to give more separation from the adjacent properties around that. I do understand your concern with the potential 0 setback, though.
And I agree, normally in an urban setting, absolutely, I would like to push that, but this is with the power lines, with a major arterial that sees a lot of traffic, that's the concern. But I also get why we're trying to push everything to that bottom corner too, so.
Understood.
Chair Ayers and board members, if I may, it's also important to remember that the entire right-of-way is not going to be road. So there's always, utilities and sidewalks and things like that that happen before the traffic. So while the right-of-way may be at the building, it doesn't necessarily mean that the roads will be right at the building.
Totally agree, but the curb line is also super close. So, but I'm good. I'll leave it up to the board if anybody else wants to make a motion. Either way, I'm good. I'm gonna look to you, Jeffrey.
All right, I will make a motion. Let me move item 4B, case ZON 23-00160, Meridian Gardens, District 5, within the 1100 block of South Meridian Road, west side, and the 11,500 block of East Southern Avenue, north side, located north of Southern Avenue and west of Meridian Road, rezone from single residence 43, or RS 43, to multiple residence 3 with a planned area development overlay and site plan review. This request will allow for a multiple residence development. The staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Is there anyone that would like to? Did you say what you were moving, by the way, today?
I moved it.
You moved it?
Move to approve.
I will move,
You moved it.
I move it and then we vote on it, right? Yes or no?
Well, are you?
I believe the motion was to approve with conditions.
You're moving to approve, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
I
is there a
move,
second?
I move to approve.
With conditions.
With, with staff recommendation approval it with conditions. We don't have any other conditions,
No, but what's
do we?
on there, right? Okay.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
So confused.
With 5 ayes and 1 no, the motion passes for case ZON 23-00160. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, Chair, board members, next item we have off consent is 4C, which is case ZON 23-00495. And Jennifer will be making that presentation.
Thank you, Chair, board members. This is case ZON 23-00415. The request is to rezone a approximately 2.8 acre property from RS6 to RM2 PAD, as well as site plan review to allow a new 38-unit multiple residence development. The location is north of University Drive on the west side of Power Road, across from the Red Mountain branch of the Mesa Public Library. To the south is an existing mini storage facility. To the west and north is a residential property that is in the Maricopa County jurisdiction. To the west is also a single residential development that's a retirement neighborhood. The general plan character area is neighborhood with a suburban subtype. The intent of the neighborhood character area is to provide safe places to live and enjoy the surrounding community, as well as to provide associated non-residential uses. The existing zoning on the site is RS6, and the request is to rezone to RM2 with a planned area development overlay. And RM2 is multiple residential. It's a primary zoning district in the neighborhood suburban character area. This slide shows a photo of the site. It's looking northwest towards the site from the intersection of Power and Decatur. And this photo shows a view into the site looking south from Dallas Street. You'll see that it's an existing parking lot. The parking lot was constructed several decades ago, and it has most recently been used to serve a nearby church, but it was explained to staff that the parking is no longer needed by the church. The site plan shows proposed 2- and 3-story townhomes. The 2-story townhomes are located towards the top of the site plan that we see. That would be the west side of the site plan. And the 2- and 3-story townhomes are located on the east side of the site. That's right along Power Road. The buildings are angled to enhance the architectural design, but also to mitigate any direct view from upstairs or second-story windows into the adjacent single residential yards. The amenity area for the development is centrally located, and it includes a ramada, a barbecue area, and a playground. And there's also a dog park located at the south end of the site. There are pedestrian paths that go throughout the neighborhood. They go to each unit's main entry, as well as to the amenity areas and to the public rights-of-way. The vehicular access is from Power Road. That's the main entrance and exit. And then there's a secondary entrance and exit off of Dallas Street along the north side. The landscape plan shows that the proposed landscape materials meet the requirements of the Mesa zoning ordinance. Also, the sizes of the trees along the west property line exceed the minimum requirements of the Mesa zoning ordinance. Those are 36-inch box trees along the west side of the site to provide additional buffering from the residences to the west. The request includes a planned area development overlay. The PAD overlay allows modifications to the development standards in the Mesa zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance requires a 30-foot wide building setback along the east, south, and west property lines. This request is for reductions to that 30-foot wide setback. Along the east side of the property, adjacent to Power Road, the reduction is to 15 feet. Along the south property line, adjacent to the mini storage, the reduction is to 22 feet. And along the west property line, adjacent to the single residences, the reduction is to 25 feet. The materials of the exterior of the buildings are also requested for modification. The zoning ordinance requires at least 2 primary building materials on the multiple residential developments, with each of those primary building materials covering at least 25% of the exterior walls of the building. The request is to have at least 2 kinds of primary building materials, but for them to possibly cover less than 25% of the exterior walls. The reason for that request is that 3 primary building materials are requested or proposed, and those are stucco, which does cover at least 25% of the exterior walls, as well as siding and brick. And those 2 building materials each do not cover 25% of the exterior walls. The Mesa zoning ordinance also limits the perimeter wall heights to 6 feet, and the request is to provide an 8-foot tall wall along the west property line, because that was something that the neighbors requested to increase their privacy in their rear yards. For the parking area, the zoning ordinance requires a minimum of 50 feet from the property line abutting a public street to the first cross drive aisle or parking space. And the request includes a reduction to that to 34 feet from the Dallas Street right-of-way. And the last modification is to the foundation base area. That's the landscaped area immediately surrounding each building. The code requires a minimum 10-foot wide foundation base between the face of the wall and the nearest parking spaces. And there are 3 instances within this development where that is reduced by a couple of feet. In one instance, it's 5 foot 3 inches wide. In another instance, it's 3 feet wide. And another one is 1 foot 8 inches wide. And that's to allow additional guest parking spaces and a centrally located solid waste enclosure. This slide shows the east elevation of the buildings. You can see, this is the view from Power Road, and you can see variety of building heights. There's 2-story buildings and 3-story buildings along Power Road. And this slide shows the west elevation, and this shows the 2-story buildings that are adjacent to the single residences to the west. The north elevation shows both the 2- and 3-story buildings along Power Road, a central drive aisle, and then the 2-story buildings on the west side of the property. Going back a couple of slides to the planned area development overlay, I do want to clarify that there are some, when staff evaluates the requests for planned area development overlay modifications, we are looking for justification for those modifications. And this property is proposing high-quality architecture. It's proposing 3 primary building materials, which is more than the required 2. They have recessed windows and multiple changes in plane across the elevations. Also, the buildings are positioned at an angle to the property lines. And also, the tree sizes and the common open space and amenity areas exceed the minimum that's required as part of the Mesa zoning ordinance. The applicant did complete a citizen participation process. They notified property owners within 1,000 feet, as well as HOAs and registered neighborhoods. They held a neighborhood meeting on June 6th, and there were 17 participants in that meeting. There were several concerns that were brought up by the participants during that meeting, and then since then, staff has heard from several of the neighbors. The concerns include an increase to traffic in the surrounding neighborhoods, as well as along Power Road and the intersection of Dallas and Power Road. Also, there was a concern about the existing wall height along the west property line. The neighbors explained that the existing wall is closer to 5 feet in height, and they were concerned about privacy in their backyards. So the applicant has been working with the neighbors and will continue to work with the neighbors to replace their existing block walls with the new 8-foot block wall to provide them more privacy. The neighbors are also concerned about the disruption of their existing quiet neighborhood, particularly with vehicles and with children who will likely live in this multiple residential development. They're also concerned about parking along the surrounding streets because the proposed development does meet the required parking ratio of 2.1 parking spaces per unit, but the neighbors are concerned that that's not adequate to serve the proposed development. Also, they're concerned about the building heights. The request does comply with the Mesa 2040 general plan, and it does comply with Chapter 69 of the Mesa zoning ordinance for site plan review. It also complies with Chapter 22 of the Mesa zoning ordinance for a PAD overlay, and staff recommends approval with conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for the presentation. So just trying to understand the part, even though it's a parking lot right now, the existing zoning allows for residential, it's RS6 allows for residential development, correct?
Chair and Board Member Peterson, that's correct.
Okay, so then just understanding what is, in looking at some of the neighborhood feedback through the citizens participation program, to understand what is allowed by right in RS6 versus what this plan is offering, and just a few things. So you already mentioned that typically the code would just have the 6-foot wall along the west property line, and there's an agreement to take it to 8 feet for greater privacy.
That's correct.
Okay, and then on the rear setback, if there was under the current zoning, what's the rear setback for RS6 zoning?
Chair, Board Member Peterson, I'd have to look that up. I believe it's 25 feet, but I don't know if someone could confirm that for me.
Chair, I'll look that up. Give me 1 minute here.
Okay.
$15 per story. I was trying to remember the backside. Is that right?
For the current zoning for RS6, the rear setback is 20 feet.
Okay, so it's 20, and what's the setback for this plan to those first units is what's that dimension?
Chair, Board Member Peterson, the required setback for the RM2 is 15 feet per story,
But, yeah, what's provided on the plan, I guess?
25 feet.
So the current by right is 20 minimum, but this is providing some 25 additional to that?
Correct.
Okay, and then for the building heights, Rachel, what's the height maximum for RS6?
30 feet.
Okay, so it's 30, and then the closest to the west are two-story buildings, right? And what's the height of those buildings?
Chair, Board Member Peterson, I'll let the applicant
Okay,
address
that's
that
fine, yeah.
question, but I know that the maximum height of the three-story buildings on this proposed site is 30 feet.
Okay, so even the 3 stories are within the current by right zoning, and then the 2 stories may be some, we'll have the applicant say what those are.
The current three-story buildings would be permitted with the rezoning.
Correct, but even the RS6, the current zoning by right allows up to 30 feet.
Correct.
Height, right, okay. All right, and we'll defer to the applicant for that other question when they get it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, one more question. And then for some of the traffic things, the Dreamland Village is, just to confirm, that's in the county right now, so county, McDOT would be the controlling traffic authority for a lot of those things?
Chair, Board Member Peterson, that's correct. The
Okay.
county has jurisdiction. Evan double-checked, and Dallas Street is within the county jurisdiction.
Okay.
And the roadways within Dreamland, that
also
neighborhood are also county.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? No, okay. All right, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, with that, we do have several people that would like to speak on this one. So do we have anybody on the phone on this one, or just the blue cards? Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is I'll go through these, I'll call you up, and everybody gets 3 minutes to kind of talk to us about what your opinion is on this one, and we'd appreciate if you kind of hold to that. And if you come up and state your name and address to start off, that would be appreciated as well. So let's start with Carol Leonard. There she is. Thank you, Carol.
Let me pull this down.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Carol Leonard. My address is 613 North 67th Place. Our property is the largest of the properties in the whole of Dreamland. We back right up to the parking lot that they're going to be putting the 2 stories in. That's 25 feet, I believe, from our wall to the 2-story. And I was the one that asked because that wall, that existing wall is only 4 inches wide, 5 feet tall. I'm only 4'11", so I could look right over it. And I'm thinking, at first I was majorly upset because we attend the church. So I knew right away when they were selling the property that it's going to be sold for something. I was really glad that it wasn't a drive-through restaurant because that would have meant traffic constantly driving through, and the trash cans. We always have problems with roof rats in those areas, and I'm thinking trash cans and, and then we've had problems with transients that have been sleeping back there in the parking lot, so we've had to have that. So I'm really happy that they're doing the 8-foot wall. I'm really happy that they're putting the trees in there. And even though I can't look out and see the sun coming up or look at the distance, because I'm going to feel claustrophobic with 2 stories, I do feel like they're trying to work with us. I think the problem is, for me, is that we are a senior citizen community. So there's only 4 parking spots in that whole 38-unit complex that's extra. You got two people that are going to have living in, or more, and they're going to have two cars. I don't know very many people that only have one car. Where are they going to park? There's not enough parking for visitors, or it's a lot of buildings on that parking lot. It's not that big. So, and then I didn't hear anything about the drainage. I know they said that there is going to be one area that's going to have for the water reservoir water coming down. That gets filled up. My mother and father-in-law own the property, and then so all these years we've been able to see how that is, and it'll fill up. So I know they were talking about underground, so I'd like to have them address that. And then we've always taken care of the trees along that wall. I never expected to have anybody else take care of that. They would do their side, and we would do our side. So, and you know, I learned a lot listening to the other people. So that's basically what my thing is. I think that we're concerned for traffic. And it's going to change the context possibly of the community because we live off of Decatur, even though it's 67th. Them cutting through the neighborhood and just blowing down that Decatur to get through, to get you down to University. We're going to probably put speed bumps in there. And I thought about even signs with, like, you know, walkers or even a couple of old people dancing with walkers, but some signs along the way to say, hey, listen, slow down. We have elderly here. The dynamics of our community has changed over the years, and we're working so hard to try to keep the dynamics of the community because we are an older community, even though I don't consider myself old. I'm 65 now, but that community has tried to maintain the integrity of it. And so I think that's one of the issues that they're having with this large complex. So that's what I hear. And other than that, that's all I can give you.
All right, thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Next, I have Joe Kurt. Curto, is that it, Curto? Sorry.
Yes, yeah. Anyway, yes, I'm Joe Curto, and I lived at 6664 East Des Moines, which is sort of right around the corner from, you know, Dallas and 67th. And, yeah, again, one of the biggest concerns is really, you know, just traffic, okay? It's like, you know, just human nature. People always try to find cut-throughs and stuff. Because, I mean, just when, you know, any of us try to pull out on Power Road, sometimes we have to sit there for quite a while for all the traffic to get by. Okay, so the people in the apartments, you know, they're going to choose probably to pull out of the Dallas gate instead of on the Power Road, because they can just pull out and then think, okay, we're just going to cut through these neighborhoods, then go over to University or go up to Brown or whatever, and it's going to create a lot of traffic through the neighborhood, okay? And, you know, it's going to be noise and so forth. And, I mean, me and my wife, we have grandkids that come over, and yeah, we play in the street, you know? And so that's just going to create another situation there. You know, even though, of course, you know, we watch them all that, but still, it's just going to add to traffic and create you know, a little bit of a safety problem there, and just take away from, you know, from what we're used to, just being able, again, to really just go out and play in the street, you know, on the weekends or whatever, or when we have the grandkids. And then also, you know, it's just gonna be noise and, you know, and then there's the school up there. It's just, I think it's going to be, you know, just add a lot of extra traffic and so forth, you know, to that particular area. And I didn't come real prepared, but I mean, those are, you know, really some of my concerns, and that it's just really going to change the neighborhood, like, you know, the lady was saying, and like I say, it's just going to be traffic, you know, with people cutting through and so forth. I used to live in Chandler, and I used to live in a nice little cul-de-sac when I first moved there. Then that big mall came up and whatever, and all of a sudden people are, again, they're cutting through our cul-de-sac, or I'm sorry, little corner street to avoid the intersection, you know? I lost 2 cats from people running them over, you know. Then I finally stopped letting my cats out, but that was only because people are cutting through our neighborhood to avoid intersections and so forth. And I can tell you that's going to happen for sure right here, where people are going to be coming in. When they're going to be leaving that apartment complex, they're going to probably be cutting through the neighborhood because, again, just the way the traffic is now, you just got to sit there so long to get out on Power Road. You know, particularly then you got the library right across the street, you know, and, you know, people, you know, that takes a lot of people go there, so they, you know, pull into the center lane to make their turns, and they're you know, kind of blocking traffic. It's just gonna be a traffic nightmare, you know. And then again, it's just going to disrupt our whole neighborhood, you know. And then again, there's the whole parking thing. I mean, 4 extra spaces. Come on. I mean, if anybody, you know, if 4 tenants have people over, where are those people going to park?
Thank you,
You know
Chair.
where?
Appreciate your
You know?
comments.
And then right across the street on Dallas, there's that senior apartment complex, okay? And quite a few of those, they park on the street, even though they have parking in the back, but it's just easier for them to park on the street just to walk out their front door and get in their car.
Mr. Curto,
So,
you're past your 3 minutes. If you could wrap up real quick for us, we appreciate it.
yeah, okay. So again, it's just gonna be a parking problem, you know? And then, again, just all the traffic through the neighborhood and just disrupting things. So that's all I can fit in 3 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Curto. We appreciate
You're
your
welcome.
comments. Next, I have Jeffrey Pettit.
Hello, I am Jeffrey Petit. And 6655 East Dallas Street. I live there right on Dallas. I gave you this, all right? You might see the signatures. There's 68 signatures. I was concerned. I went around to my neighbors within 500 feet of the complex that they want to build, wondering what in the world they think about all this. Everyone said, we do not want this. We're very concerned. We're older people, a lot of cars, a lot of traffic, a lot of noise. We bought these homes because we wanted a quiet place, 55-plus place. We didn't want all the hustle and bustle. We already struggled trying to get onto Power Road because there's a lot of traffic, as he mentioned. There is an exit and entrance to this proposed plan right there on Dallas, which of course creates a lot of exiting and entering from that 38 units right there on Dallas, which creates a lot more danger for us, puts us in danger, especially the much older people. I'm representing 68 people that signed because they said they couldn't make it. A lot of them are up to 95 years old. And they can't walk very well. They can't travel. They couldn't come here. They're embarrassed. They're scared to come here and speak in public. So I'm speaking for them. We see that there's very little parking for the extra parking for the facilities inside there. They say there's 2 per unit, and there's a few extra. But we know that, and in my experience, I've lived in neighborhoods that were same kind of complexes. These are up to 4-bedroom units, 3 and 4 bedrooms, and their family. And a lot of them will have teenagers that drive. So you don't have 2 cars, when I was there, I had 5 because I have teenagers, right? They all go to work. So where are they gonna park? They can't fit. And a lot of people moving in, of course, they have a lot of stuff. What our experience has been is half the garage is stored stuff, and the other half you stick a little car in, and then you don't have another spot. So we're looking for other places to park. Big problem. And then if you have visitors on the weekend, any visitors, where do they park? Family that wants to visit, where do they park? Parties, where do they park? So they're gonna spill out. They can't park on Power because there's no parking. So it's gonna spill out on Dallas Street, right there where the other exit is, and they're gonna line up along the street, and that reduces the street extremely to where you can barely get 2 cars through there if you're careful and slow. We already have trouble with that. And now we're gonna have 38 units, all these extra cars, and they're gonna be looking for some place to park. They're gonna park all along that street. They're gonna go all the way down my street in front of my house, gonna go all around the corner, and the people are concerned. So talking to them, they said, no, they didn't address our concerns. We don't think they really wanted to listen to us. And we're very concerned, and we're older people, retired, we want some peace and quiet, and it looks like there's gonna be all these cars, 30 units, going back and forth down our streets. And we can't hardly, we're afraid, we won't be able to back up out of our driveways with all these cars zooming by, because we have trouble driving as it is, we're older people. And then all of a sudden, the main exit to get on the power, it's already difficult for everybody with all that. And then they want to put a bus station right there. Do you know about the bus station? It's not on the plan, but they want to put a bus station right there in front of these units. So you have a bus stopping there and people standing there. So a lot of congestion, blocking of view. There's no turn lane on power to get into the unit, so it's not as easy as you might think. So a lot of people are going to just use Dallas. And so we're talking about a lot of traffic coming out of there, older people just trying to get onto the road, going to have traffic problems, accidents, and a lot of people parking down our streets. And the older people, up to 95 years old, the ones I talk to, they can't handle people they don't know parking in front of their houses. And it just makes them real insecure, really scared, afraid. And some of them, the ones that live right there behind, maybe one or two, but the ones I talked to, all the ones I talked to said, we do not like these things right behind our house. And their signatures are on there. So a lot of them I couldn't talk to because I only took one day because I work. And so I got to at least half of the people that were home. And almost all of them, except for one, said, we do not want this rezoned. We do not want to see this facility built here. They need to put something else besides all these units with all this traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petit. Sorry, I got your name wrong there. Appreciate that. Appreciate your comments. All right, and then I have Jack Leonard.
Good evening, Jack Leonard, 613 North 67th, please. Thank you for your time, board. Most of my concerns have been addressed. I have two other ones. The one of them, the turn in off of Power Road. When we first had the meeting, they were talking about moving the turn in farther south. And that my concern with that would be that you have Decatur by the library with a left-hand turn, designated left-hand turn lane. If you move that entry farther south, they're not going to be able to pull into the center lane to make a left-hand turn. They're going to have to sit in the outside lane of Power Road to turn left into the complex. That's one of my major concerns because they said they were going to move that entry. So I was concerned about that. My other major concern my wife brought up was the water retention because the area of the water retention is there. I talked to the representative for the client. He said, I brought it up in the initial meeting and I don't think they thought about that, but they said they're going to go with underground retention, but also they're going to use the 25-foot setback along the wall for some of the water retention. I just want to make sure if that's what they do, that it's going to be properly graded so the water does go down and be retained and not, we don't need the grading sloping into the new wall they're going to put up and run down the wall because that will deteriorate the wall. And one other thing, the one elderly couple, 2 houses up from us in the middle, that's where they're going to put the barbecue and the grill and the playground and all that, and that's directly behind their house. So being elderly people, just the extra noise and volume. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Appreciate your comments. Okay. And no one on Zoom, right? That's all we have for blue cars. Okay. All right, with that, we will invite the applicant to come up to respond. There we go. Do you have a presentation or? Yeah, okay. Do we have another one? we have another one?
They're saying they submitted cards online is what I'm hearing, but we don't have.
Yeah, you could, so if you could come up, if you could state your name and address for us, and then I'll give you 3 minutes. Does that work?
Please, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Hi, I'm Gail Ashley. I live at 6660, oh,
Pull the mic down just a little bit so we hear you a little better. You're
oh,
good.
you couldn't hear me? Oh, that's weird.
No, you're okay.
Okay.
Yeah, now go.
Okay, I live at 6663 East Dallas Street. And I'm concerned about everything that everybody has come out and said. They're perfectly right, but it doesn't, it does say that there is a bus station coming out there. And I'm like, can you imagine all of that? And we have already heard, and now they got a bus station coming up. It says it on the paper, actually, on the Power Road side. My point is, I'm freaking out a little bit because I keep seeing all these kids wanting to ride their bikes down the road and toys and the little pedals and stuff like that. That's scary to me. I'm a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and I have dogs now. My kids are going, you know, I didn't want that anymore. I like them to come and visit, and I like them to go bye-bye, you know, because I want quiet. But, I mean, I like kids around. We like kids with their families. That's necessary. But, wow, I'm worried about the road. So, you know how Mesa has big, huge streets for the, we don't have very big, wide streets. So getting around two people, getting around two cars is fine, but if you got somebody, even us, if we park our car, we have a company or something, they have to go around, or they have to wait, and then they go around. It's not as easy as everybody might think it would be. But honestly, this was supposed to be my last stop before I get to go to heaven. But it's not looking really good at the moment. It's kind of worrying me. I don't want to move again. Most of us can't move again. We're too done with that. So anyway, that's mostly my situation. And also there's many times when the fire department and the ambulance come down that road. And so that's another consideration that they might want to think about. So anyway, thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Was it Gail, right, I believe? I think I wrote that down. Okay. Oh, we have another one too? Just one more? Or two more? Okay. Okay, if you could state your name and address for us for the public.
Sure.
Thank you.
My name is Robin Fryman. I'm a transplant from Minnesota. So here I am in Arizona now and getting used to that. Lived in Apache Junction for a while, moved down into Dreamland Villa, and we are a community there. I think you've heard people from the group, the community of Dreamland Villa that reside in this area where they're thinking about adding all these additional buildings. And the thing that concerns me the most is the safety. The safety. I looked at my window one morning and there was a woman with a walker and a dog, and she was stopped in the middle of the street, right directly in front of Gail's house. And I took the liberty of going out my house. I walked up to her and I said, "Can I help you? You look like you're having a hard time." She's out getting her exercise, and she's exercising her dog and herself at the same time. And I was worried for her, and she is still out there. We saw her the other day doing the same thing. She's taken the opportunity to get her exercise and do the dog at the same time. And unfortunately, you know, that's going to happen. And they don't always watch the speed with which they're driving down Dallas. We had a car delivery today with a great big semi go down Dallas Street, delivering a car from, I guess, Carvana or wherever the car was ordered from. But that's a concern. That's my biggest concern, is the safety of the people, the identity of the community, and we don't want to lose that. I mean, we live there for a reason. We're retired. Like Gail said, maybe this is our last place to live, but we want it to be the way it is, and we don't need some other people coming in and building and causing in that little tiny parking lot, you know, townhouses. It's just amazing to think that it could ever happen. But we're hoping it doesn't. And so we're here to rally. There's not many of us, but I think we did a good job telling you how it is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right. We're good? Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay. We'll invite you back up here.
Me again. Sorry, John Gillespie, Pew and Lake, 174 South Val Vista. Represent the developer on this case. I think I will go through our slide deck here as it addresses a few of the comments that were raised by neighbors. Grateful that we had such a good turnout and the community is engaged here. Our site is a really small site. Let's make this bigger, sorry. I might need Jennifer to
To the right, two more over.
my
Like that.
my technician.
There you go.
Do we like that? Okay. As mentioned, it's overflow parking for the Via Church, which is up on Adobe and Power. The church has studied their parking against the zoning requirements, and they no longer need this site for their parking needs. Directly across the street from Red Mountain Library and next to all the great facilities that the city of Mesa has put in this part of the city, and really one of the attractive things to the developer here is being close to those city facilities. General plan is neighborhood, as was mentioned in Jennifer's good presentation. The current zoning is important. It's a little of a mismatch since we have county zoning here. Truly an infill site, currently zoned RS6. To the north of us in the county, there's three fourplex units that are zoned R3, which is a multifamily designation. To the west, it's R16. To the south, we have an RV and commercial storage site in the GC zone. And then across the major Power Road arterial is public facilities. So we really think that the RM2 PAD works well as an infill site, and that we've done a really good job working with staff to give considerations to the existing conditions of the area. To talk about a few of those characteristics on the site plan here. So we are 38 townhome style units. The parking for the site, the ratio ends up being a little bit over 2.1 per unit. And I do want to just, since it was raised, show, just for illustration purposes, those duplexes that are directly to the north, since those in the area are familiar with those. That's 12 units there, and they have 12 covered spaces, as you can see on this site here to the north, directly north of us. And so that's one parking stall per unit that site is currently parked at. And we are proposing 2.1 per unit. And so there's obviously differences between those unit styles, but I think that's a fair illustration to show that we really want to provide good parking. The developer has an incentive to park this development to meet their needs. There will be association agreements in place with the development that manage how many cars can each resident have in the site and control for some of those concerns. The site itself, laid out with really nice open space and amenities to address, to make it a nice living area, that it's a market rate product that really we think is going to add a lot of value to this part of the city. Talking about the buffering, so we have 7 neighbors who are directly adjacent to the site. And those neighbors, I think we've gotten a pretty good reception actually as to the steps that we have taken to buffer this site. We do have an average 30-foot landscape buffer there. So since the homes have been diagonally aligned, both for an aesthetic purpose and then as well to mitigate potential concerns of looking into neighboring properties, that ends up being a 35-foot distance to the building and 25 feet at the closest, but 35 feet at the furthest. So it's actually a 30-foot average there, which is above the, as was mentioned, the R16 current zoning entitlement. We also explicitly said, let's put in one 36-inch box tree for each unit that's in that buffer. So we put 17 trees in there to create a nice buffer there, 29 total trees in that western boundary. So really a well-landscaped area to help with that. And then one of the biggest concerns, the existing wall really is closer to 5 feet. And so an improvement that the developer has agreed to raise that up to 8 feet, which is a significant cost to the developer, but was mentioned by the neighbors, and we think it's a good thing to do for this site. Another design characteristic, we put the front patios on the east side of each of those two-story townhomes. And so that creates the active area is on the east side, interior to our site. Lighting, those type of noise, those things are mitigated because that's moved to the interior of the site. I'll share here just, I guess, factual for some information. Our site, not perfectly to scale, is down there in the bottom right of this against Power Road, as you can see. Power Road's a major arterial in the city. There's 20,000 plus cars that go down Power Road, so we certainly understand the concern of having to wait to get onto Power Road. For that purpose, our main entrance into our site off of Power, we have large site visibility that's been set up there. It's there's not buildings directly onto our onto where we're going to turn out onto Power Road. So we've created a nice landscape and gathering area that's an amenity for residents, but also it creates some open space for cars to make it attractive to turn from there. As well, obviously, we can go to the public street there on Dallas and use that to go in and out of the site. I really don't think that there's any incentive for a resident to go through the neighborhood. Power Road's going to be the quickest access to amenities, shopping, and work. And so I really think that's the primary way that current residents use and what will continue to be used by the proposed development. Agreed. Okay, thank you very much. I am happy to take any comments that or questions that the board might have.
Any questions? Go ahead.
I appreciate your presentation. One of the comments that came up a lot was parking. And I know that there are what, 10 or 11 visitor spaces that are on the site plan right now. But you mentioned something about limiting the number of cars by agreement, by the CC&Rs or other agreement. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, so the CC&Rs or the association documents can be used to, for a couple of things. Number one, they can be used to say, you have a garage space. That garage space cannot be used for storage. It needs to be used for parking. So that's one consideration. There's a mix of garage, driveway, and surface spaces. So for each of the units, it does have 2 spaces directly allocated to that unit, so that the city of Mesa doesn't govern explicitly that aspect, but we will be able to say each unit has 2 spaces, either a garage or 2 garage and a driveway directly to that unit. So the actual surface spaces that could be used for visitor parking is, I'm going to do the math on the top of my head, you're right, it's about...
There's 6 on the east and then another 5 in the center.
Yeah, so it's 11 spaces that would be solely, this is for a visitor, and then as well, obviously, the designated spaces a visitor could park in their driveway.
But the CC&Rs are going to have a limit on the number of cars?
Yes, CC&Rs will be used to limit the parking available to residents, yeah.
Anything else? Troy?
Sorry, Chair Peterson, can I share just one other thing? Because I think you've raised a couple other things that maybe not addressed from the neighbors. Question about drainage. We are going to need to do underground storage here. So the majority of the rainwater that hits this site will be put into underground storage tanks. keep it off of the nice new wall, and that area can have some degree of volume in it because it will be a large landscape area, but the majority of drainage is taking place in underground storage tanks. And the question on, I think I touched on the turning movements and kind of our expected movements onto Power, being a right turn out of the site, potentially could be done, and as well onto Power Road, right or lefts being made. The distance from our site's entrance on Power to Decatur was reviewed by the City of Mesa and determined to be a safe turning distance. And so that was thoroughly vetted by the City of Mesa to not have conflicts. And the City of Mesa were agreed, they asked us to put that bus stop in front of our site. There already is a bus stop to the south of our site in front of the commercial property. And that is just it doesn't have a covered, it's not a covered bus stop. It doesn't have kind of the nice amenities that the nice bus stops today have. So we're agreeing to relocate it in front of our site, which will benefit our residents, and as well, it benefits the city, providing a nicer bus stop right there. I think that addressed some of them there.
So John, quick before you go Troy, so I was just trying to look this up real quick. So your underground retention, is that in the, I see the catch basins, but I'm not seeing the drawing. Is that all on the road?
No, I'll defer to the design team a little bit, but it does, the main drive aisle, is that what you're referring to? Not an off-site road, but our main, our road, exactly. That's where the underground storage would be.
I figured, because I see the catch basins, okay.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks for your presentation. And so then in the rear, on the west side, the open space buffer, it'll be sloped away from the wall back towards the project, so nothing will flow towards the wall, right?
Exactly, that's the design they would put in there.
Gotcha. And then on the question previously with staff on what is the height of those the units that are closest on the west side to the wall, the 2-story units? What's the maximum height?
Yes, thank you for bringing me back to that one. So you are correct. The current RS6 allows a 30-foot height. RM2 would allow 30 foot. Our 3-story buildings will be up to the 30-foot allowance along Power Road. The 2-story buildings have an 18-foot height, building height. And then there is a parapet over the garages, which is on the eastern side of that building, that goes up to 20 to 21 feet. That's a limited parapet, so it's not, it actually is not going to be visual from the western side of those townhomes. But it is an 18-foot high building height on the western townhomes.
Okay, gotcha. And then on the, and you'd mentioned on the access for the central access way onto Power, that is full movement, left turns in, left turns out, right in, right out, everything will be allowed from that.
Absolutely, and it's central, closer to most of the units, and our anticipated, most of our movements will be from that location, right and left.
Gotcha. And then as far as any jurisdictional traffic feedback, either from City Mesa Transportation or from McDOT, what communications have been held?
Typically, the City of Mesa, when they know that there's county nearby, they will ask us to reach out to the county to get their feedback and their review. So we did that very early on in the process with McDOT to say, hey, here's our proposed unit count, our development being residential, and they review that to say, this meets our standards. They look at it and they do their traffic analysis to say, okay, we do think the majority of units or the majority of cars would probably use the city streets, but they confirm to us that they have no concerns with the number of cars that would go down there on county roads and the maintenance of those roads. So that issue, we have county, and it should be in your packet, their approval of our proposed project.
Gotcha. So design-wise, public safety reasons, that the McDOT was comfortable.
Yep, McDOT was comfortable with it.
Public safety side. Okay, thanks. And then, okay, I think that's all I had. Thanks.
Anything over here? guys are all quiet on this.
I had a question about this, but
Yeah, it's, okay, cool. I actually have one more for you. So, by the way, I misspoke. You had a total, it looks like 14 surface spaces, because I forgot the ones in the center where the handicapped are. So there's an additional 3. So 14 total. I said 11 earlier, so but I did have a question. If you look on the site plan, I don't know if we can bring that up real quick. On the far left, building type H, and you'll see on the far right, building type C, there is a pullout that's just located west of the buildings. What is that? Is that a loading or another parking space? Do you see what I'm talking about?
Like a driveway? Looks like a driveway.
So your previous comment and that comment are actually connected. So while there might be 14 surface stalls, those units do not have a carport in front of theirs, and so they need to use one of the surface spaces. So the 14 surface, 3 of those are reserved for those units, because there's going to be, the city of Mesa wants a differentiation of payment, so that's not actually used for parking in front of those garages.
And what are those little turnout, are those additional parking, surface parking? Do you know what do you see what I'm
Into
referring-
building C and building H, those would not
So
be,
if you
those are
look at
not.
the type building C, you're looking at the far right-hand side. Directly to the top of that on the page, to the west of the building, there's a pull-out in the curb.
Oh, it's a parallel parking spot along the drive aisle.
Okay, so
Correct.
there's 2 additional that I didn't, okay.
That's correct.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to understand what that was, if that was like a loading area or something. Okay, I'm good. Any other questions? Troy, you guys are all good? You're good? Nothing, Jason? Go for it.
Do you know how many units are south of the entrance off of Power Road? I'm just mentally thinking through this thing.
Can I just count real quick?
I guess I wasn't sure how many units are in type H and type G shown on the site plan here, and type A.
My architect can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that there's 12 units south of that main entrance.
12 units, okay. Of the 38.
So building type H is a 3-story building, and building type G is a 2-story building.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Last chance. Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I will close the public hearing portion of this and open up this one for board discussion. Troy, go for it.
So in kind of going through and both the comments made here tonight by the public, and then also the previous comments during the course of the last few months with the application on, and in looking over the various issues on the building height, the setbacks, compared to what is by right allowed in the zoning, the access, the full access onto, from the central drive. I think that's critical that they have the full access there, and that the heights are not only, they're, especially on the western side, that the heights are quite a bit less than even what the existing allows. And then on the parking and traffic, I appreciate the responses from both McDOT and City Mesa Transportation, but then on the parking and the parking concerns in looking at those and thinking that, I mean, a lot of multifamily projects that we get, they say that the code already requires way too much and they're asking for reductions, right? And so in this case, it even exceeds a little bit what's above there, which would lead to think that that's, and then I appreciate the applicant and what they're willing to do with managing and having some restrictions and self-enforcement over the resident parking that'll be there as well. Yeah, so those are my comments.
Anybody? Oh, Jason?
Considering the comments made by the public today, I understand the fear about the parking. I could easily see where visitors would not find a spot available, and then the obvious attraction would be to park on Dallas or somewhere close nearby. When considering the drive-through traffic, I'm kind of thinking this through. If we've got 12 units that are south of that entrance, I would assume that those 12 units, or potentially 24 cars, would come and go out of that entrance. The 26 that are north of that, between Dallas and there, I would think that half of those would then use Dallas to get access to power, and then maybe half may go through the neighborhood. So if you're looking at that, that's 17 cars, more or less, per day, maybe twice a day, going up and down the streets, which would be an added amount of traffic, but I don't know that that's an onerous amount, considering that these are, it's a 33-foot or 66-foot wide street of Dallas, and then 50-foot wide throughout the neighborhood. But I do understand that's there, that would be a change and a consideration. So with those things, I think that the developer has acknowledged a lot of the issues. The one issue that I'd be curious to see how it plays out, or how they're able to restrict it, whether it's through a rental agreement on top of CCNRs, would be the parking. And so that's just a question that I have out there. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer.
Anybody else? Oh, thought you asked something. Well, I'll chime in here. So I think starting to look back at this from the beginning, again, I appreciate everybody's comments, and I understand a lot of them. When you look at this from a purely zoning standpoint, this is a thin slot that's on Power Road. The original RS6, that is not a feasible, let's be honest, it's not a feasible use for that property. It would never develop that way. And I think that considering where it could go, this is one of the better uses that could happen on this site, especially for the neighborhood that's right there. I think that a lot of the concerns that I had about access and parking, the client has worked through that. A lot of the things that were set up on the board, I agree with. I think that looking through and understanding, I would be a little bit more concerned, for example, if Dallas went all the way through to 64th. That would be a much easier path of least resistance, human nature, as I heard earlier as a comment. If it went through, that would obviously be really easy, but that doesn't go through. So they'd have to be kind of winding through, and it makes me wonder if someone would actually go that direction. And I think that your perspective, Jason, is actually quite good as well. With the parking, again, and I echo Troy's comments, typically when we see, these types of developments, we're seeing asking for parking reductions. I'd say almost all of them really do, it seems like. So I applaud that, that they're actually seeking more, and I agree. I actually appreciate that there's a CCNR that would limit those, so you would never see those 5 cars, for example. That would not happen in a development with the CCNRs in place. So that, and then just the planning of it myself, you look, I appreciate that they went through and thought through the backside of this and gave a pretty significant setback along the backside, and the addition of the new 8-foot wall, I think is good. So with all these things, I'm in favor of this project kind of moving as approved, as staff has indicated, and I would see what everybody else on the board thinks. So I'm happy to make that motion, unless anybody else has any more discussion. No? All right, so with that, I would move to approve ZON 23-00495, the Power Townhomes within the 600 block of North Power Road and within the 6700 block of East Dallas Street, located north of University Drive and west of Power Road. This is a rezone from single residence 6 to multiple residence 2 with a planned area development overlay and a site plan review. The staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Anybody second that?
I'll second.
All right, and with that, everybody, please vote. Okay, unanimous approval with everyone on the board that's here today, approving to go through with the Power Townhomes. We appreciate everybody's comments, and we thank you for your time. I think that was it is there any other updates?
No. Mary, did you have any other updates for the board?
Chair, board members, no other updates. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt. All right, with that, I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please.
Move.
And is that the new one, I guess? All right, we're good to go, I think. Unanimous. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Did you move to move? Move to move.
She moved to move.